This video is brought to you by Australian Transport News, Owner Driver, Deals on Wheels and NewTruckSearch.com.au.
G'day, welcome back to Truck TV. Well, we're sitting in the cab of a truck, so that means we're going to have some real fun on this one. We're actually down in Melbourne at Campbellfield where we're visiting Scania. They've given us a brand new G440 prime mover hooked up to a single trailer. Doesn't sound anything too special, does it? Well, this one's a little bit different. It's a 6x2. That means instead of having bogie drive, it's only using a single with a lazy behind it. The big advantage there, of course, is fuel consumption. You're not trying to turn two diffs, you're not burning as much fuel. You're not carrying as much weight, you're not burning as much fuel. There's a bit of a theme to this. So we'll go and have a look around the truck. But basically, it's a DC13, same as you'll find in any other mid-range Scania. 440 horsepower, 324 kilowatts, 2300 newton meters of torque. So it's not short on pulling power, 42.5 tonne. This thing should be a real little ripper. Best of all though, it's got the 2-pedal OptiCruise. This means no gear stick, no third pedal. All we have to do, click the lever into place on the steering column. The computers take care of everything else. It's a direct drive gearbox, so guess what? 2.71 diff ratio. Again, great for fuel consumption. Now, inside the cab, the G Series cab, not as big as the R Series that we see for the big line haul trucks, but it's got a sleeper cab, 2 nice comfortable seats, plenty of space, so you're not going to be rubbing shoulders during the drive if you've got someone out there with you. Really good ergonomics. Buttons and switches, nice and big. You just click things on and off, everything works a treat. Cruise control on the bottom of the steering wheel, nice and easy to do. You just, as you're driving along, engage your cruise control, that takes care of it. It's got the secondary hill descent control, which is essentially another cruise control, but that controls your speed coming down a hill. So you get at the top of a big hill like say the Toowoomba range, you don't want to come down above 35, you just dial this one down to 35. Again, all the computers, they kick in, they look after the speed. All you've got to do is keep it between the white lines. Look, even I can do that. The other good things about this truck is that even though it's geared up for around town operations, the driver gets a handy little refrigerator. As well as having the simple controls for getting into drive and reverse, one other thing that the OptiCruise gearbox has, which is very important on an AMT, is a manoeuvring gear. It's basically a low reverse. So when you're backing in and out of docks, you just put it into manoeuvring gear, and it's just like having crawler gear on a manual transmission. One of the other things that the DC13 engine in the G cab doesn't have is SCR. It actually uses EGR, exhaust gas recycling. So what that means is, here's the exhaust right here. Now, look, I don't mind SCR, but for around town operations, all you've got to worry about is your fuel tank. There's no AdBlue. Everything is all contained here in the EGR unit. Well, we're on site with Scania Trucks here in Campbellfield. Joining us is Ian Butler, the Product and Application Support Manager for New Trucks with Scania. Ian, thanks very much for your time.
Morning.
Now, we're talking about 6x2 drivelines today. What's the bottom line benefit for an operator to go to a 6x2 driveline?
Well, the main benefit for 6x2, of course, is reduced fuel consumption. Now, we have one less axle in the rear, so there's less mechanical losses in the driveline, so there's advantages in going to 6x2. The other important advantage, of course, is reduced tear weight. Compared to Scania's 6x4 truck, the 6x2 has a payload advantage of around 400 kilograms, and depending on the specification, it's possible to get a little bit more as well.
So 400 kilograms on the same drive, the same carry weight, I mean that's got to translate to a big profitability margin.
It does. That additional 400 kilos in payload is very much an advantage for any operator. Now,
what about maintenance? I have to imagine that it would be a lot easier to maintain a 6x2 rather than a 6x4.
Of course, there's one less axle, so there's reduced servicing from oil with that axle, and of course there's no jack shaft between the two differentials, so there's less maintenance there as well.
Why would people persevere with a 6x4 when they've got all these benefits with a 6x2?
Well, it depends on the application. If the vehicle's going to be used in situations where traction can be a bit of a problem, say tip trucks and those sorts of things where it may be greasy, of course 6x4 is the obvious way to go. But for your typical highway truck, single trailer, or for local distribution work where you need to carry the weight but don't necessarily have the traction problems, 6x2 is probably the best way to go.
So there we have it, the Scania G440 6x2. They're not the first to come up with a single drive lazy axle configuration. They certainly won't be the last. But in this particular truck, it looks like they've really managed to package it all up very nicely for someone who's running around doing urban operations. Okay, you probably wouldn't drive it from Melbourne to Sydney on over and over, but then again, that's why you buy the bigger trucks. But if all you're doing is running around the city, why would you want to look at something that's going to burn a lot more fuel than this type of truck? This is Truck TV Australia. I'm Gary Worrell. We'll see you next time.
This video is brought to you by Australian Transport News, Owner Driver, Deals on Wheels and NewTruckSearch.com.au.